Mitch.
So moved.
Never mind.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Okay. 700 series.
Absolutely.
Chase,
Sorry.
okay.
Well, good evening. Nice to see everyone. As always, we will take questions on any of the policy updates you have or other suggestions you might. But to help expedite our meeting this evening, we have 5 that we would like to draw your attention to. The first is 701.5, fiscal management. And really, we just comments on that in there. It's a new policy from the state.
You got a page on that?
You know, I just,
13?
sorry, I printed them
13?
off. I always use that sidebar function too. Adam, any comments on that one?
The only comments I would make is that this really puts in policy what our current practice is, which is to bring you that financial summary after the district has submitted its CAR and once the information is available. The other element of this policy that I do think is important is that it does outline some of the items for which the district may go to the SBRC to seek additional modified supplemental amounts. This has never been a policy recommendation before. Again, this doesn't really change any of our practices, but just formalizes it.
All right. The second one is policy 704.7, the honorary and memorial gift program, and that's on page 44. Actually, I think it starts on 43, but the bulk of it's on 44, and then 45, and 46. And this was a new policy that the district put in place several years ago, and we modeled the program after what the city of Iowa City was doing in terms of trying to streamline our process for gifts in honor of other people. As we came out of COVID, we've had a renewed a new focus on social emotional health and well-being. And some of you might be familiar with our CISM team. That's our crisis response team that we send out to schools when we have an incident, either in the building or involving someone associated with the building. And they've given us some feedback in this area about how we celebrate the passing of sometimes current or even former students or staff when that passing might have been of unnatural causes or, unfortunately even suicide among teenagers, and how that when we recognize that in some ways we actually create more harm than it does for the school environment. And so they brought forward some significant changes to this policy that actually originally would have struck everything we were offering in terms of planting a tree or putting a bench. We believe there's other reasons that exist in our community that people would still want to do that, so we didn't want to take that out. But the green that you see on the last 2 paragraphs of the new policy, those are additions and recommendations from our system team to really try to honor students and staff in the past in a respectful manner, but also not do things that might unintentionally inspire negative thoughts for other students or create copycat situations. So we believe we're trying to walk that line of honoring people throughout our community, but also making sure we continue to protect the health, safety, and well-being of our students in the process. Sorry, I'm trying to talk loud, but it's a little hard. So, any questions I can answer? Okay. The next 2 would be 705.1, 705.1R2, our purchase bidding, and then our use of federal funds in the procurement contracts. I'm going to turn that over to Adam.
Yep, so 705.1, this was a policy that was updated last year, and it was updated in response to some code changes that required us to modify language related to what the thresholds were for different types of bid requirements. One of the things that was brought to our attention by staff at the physical plant is that a direct reading, and so this is the kind of green and red that's in the middle under purchases for goods and services shall conform to the following. The changes that were made to the language last year ended up conflating 2 issues. One was the threshold for purchases that require prior board approval versus superintendent directive, to make a purchase versus prior board notification. The language conflated the two requirements, what requires a formal bid versus what actually needs to come to the board. And the way the policy reads is actually in conflict with the purchase guidelines the district has had in place since 2012, again, following last year's change. This updates it to reflect simply what our practices have been going back to 2012. The only changes to those would be, again, those code thresholds related to when you need to see competitive bids, which were updated by the state based upon school district size. So last year, those amounts just shifted up a little bit to be more realistic, but this basically outlines with the changes what our previous practice was, which is all purchases that include a contract or an agreement require board approval, or if it's below $25,000, can have retroactive board approval. So this includes that. Any non-contract purchases of goods and services up to $99,999 can be executed without board approval. So that's something that would be approved in bills, certainly, and you would see them there. But again, this is practice that we've had in place for a long time. So an example of this would be if there was a vehicle at the physical plant that needed an engine replacement, that might end up costing $13,000. That would not be required to come to the board for approval. I will say that oftentimes our practice is to bring some of those items to the board anyway, if we have reason to think that it would be something that would require additional conversation. But either way, the changes to 705.1 just reflect what that previous practice has been. And then the ICCSD purchasing and contract guidelines, which is on page, I think, 52, really just show what that purchasing and contract guidelines have been. And that document is, again, with the exception of those thresholds for what requires quotes, bidding, with the thresholds being nothing, informal quotes, formal quotes, and then competitive bidding. This just outlines what that policy translates to as it relates to what requires board approval, what requires board notification, what requires quotes and bidding, and then also aligns to specific federal and state laws related to capital improvement projects, that sort of thing. So I'll pause on that. Any questions on, sorry, I thought you had a question. Any questions on that? Okay. And then the other code number, apologies, was, what was the other one there, Chase?
It's 0.2 or 1R2.
Oh yeah, 705.1 R2. Yep. On page 54. So this one was updated to reflect a change to federal law, and essentially what the change does is it says that the district is prohibited from using federal loan or grant funds to purchase anything from Huawei or ZTE. And so that's a change to federal law. This is recommended language from IASB that aligns with that, and then the reference to code is there at the bottom of that green section. I do not believe that this would impact anything the district has purchased in the past or would plan to purchase in the future. I don't think there's any impact to us. Any questions?
So a general comment back on 705.1 purchasing and bidding. We kind of see this aligned with some of the work the board did, what was it, 6 or 9 months ago, when you decided that it would be a better use of time, and we agree that instead of having the board review the bills, we did more of a financial update on the quarterly, and that's kind of what was impetus for these meetings. We want to continue some of this work, and by clarifying this first in policy, one of the next steps that we'd like to do at this is P&G, not finance, at one of the finance committee meetings coming up later in the spring or summer, is revisit the Appendix 9 process with the board and about how we bring those items to the board, what information is included, how we group those items as opposed to breaking them out in standalone items either on consent or in the general agenda of the board meeting. So there's just a lot of history as Adam's articulated here, and as we move out of some of our major construction processes with FMP 1.0 and now through FMP 2.0, we believe there's an opportunity to maybe streamline some of that, also provide some more clarity, and give the board a better view on some of those pieces. So assuming that these go through and get updated, we would then come back to you and talk more about some of the logistics around it next time. So just food for thought for a later day.
I mean, it's not, but that would actually be great.
Okay, good.
Because that's just a big, chunky, hard, I can't imagine a new board member coming in and like, I don't know.
And chunky is a good word for it. It's just not very clear sometimes what's in there and how it's all stacked. So we want to do that. Then the last one we'd like to talk about tonight are snacks, in particular vending machines. This is 710.3 on page 96. Last month, or actually maybe they're on the agenda for tonight, we approved, or you're going to approve an updated wellness policy. It's in the 600s, but part of our nutrition service program is actually in the 700s, including the Smart Snack program and the vending machines. And so as part of the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010, it says right there, we have federal obligations about what type of snacks we can sell students during the school day and right after. And so this policy just updates that to say that things in our vending machines have to meet those smart snack guidelines until 30 minutes after school. And kids do not like it. Let's just put it that way. You can't buy ding dongs and cupcakes and things like that, right? So this one drives them crazy, but those federal dollars are important, and so we have to maintain those. And this just updates that policy.
So are we gonna have ding dongs in the vending machines and turn them on until 30 minutes after? Or just no more ding dongs?
And we haven't had ding dongs in there for a long time.
It's like the reduced fat Doritos. Yeah. No, they curse the Obama administration.
Yeah.
Because
People are not happy about that.
you know,
They took away the hot sauce at lunch at the school that I taught at. The kids went bonkers because they just pounded the out loud kids for
Those are our major revisions, we believe, but that doesn't mean there aren't others that you'd like to discuss or have us answer questions.
here's all the ding dongs.
Yeah.
So there were ding dongs in there.
Be happy to answer any questions on it. Okay. That's all we have to say. Yes.
Motion adjourned.